Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this writer's workshop. Today we have Mr. Malvin. He is a Tamil writer, editor, translator, and a passionate reader. He has written and published over 25 books covering history, politics, society, and culture. He is the editor of Kirakal Padipagam, New Horizon Media, a leading publishing house in Chennai for over 15 years now. He is a regular contributor to magazines and newspapers, including Tamil Hindu, Kala Chuvadu, and Vigadu. Malvin sir's writing career began as a staff writer and as a book reviewer in English for a US-based literary magazine called Critique. He then made a conscious decision to switch to the mother tongue Tamil after a year and a half of writing in English. He is presently putting together a book of interviews conducted with leading historians such as Romila Thapar, Ramachandra Guha, Nayanjot Lahiri, among others. We welcome you, sir. We also have Luna J. She is a writer and translator whose written works include God Bless You and Devil Kiss You. Her Harem journal, What the Heaven, and translation works include Malvin sir's Angels, Witches, Women, Perumal Murugan's collection of political essays on freedom of speech, among others. When not obsessing over fountain pens, Luna can be found smashing the patriarchy, challenging sexist culture, and contradicting stereotypes on a regular basis. Luna is not just a writer, she's a voracious reader with a collection of over 5,000 precious paperbacks and some hardcovers. She secretly hopes to open a library someday. We wish you all the best. Thank you for coming here. Now we move on to the session with Sir and Ma'am. Both of them will be taking a collaborative sessions together. I'm sure they'll inform you whenever the floor is open for questions.
First of all, I want to know if they can be bilingual, both English as well as Tamil. So you can understand Tamil? Okay. So I'll be conversing in English and also in Tamil. Currently, Luna will be talking mostly in English, right? Okay. So let's make this interactive because I don't want to deliver a lecture because we already written stories and I don't want to start from the basics. First of all, I want to say a few things to you. I am very impressed with the stories that you have written, each one of you. I went through every story and the play. So, therefore, very interesting reading, amazing work. Congratulations to all of you. I'm especially thrilled because we don't find students engaged in writing these days. So, reading itself absorbs a lot of their energy, and then you have something called mobile. So, that occupies most of our time, waking time as well as sleeping time for some. So, if you can, it's really a wonder that you can conceive a story and then proceed to write the story. It's really an amazing thing. So first of all, each one of you here should be happy and proud that you will be emerging as a writer in the near future. So please have that confidence and continue to write. So that's the first thing I want to tell you. And I have made a number of observations. Both of us sat together, discussed everything that is written. We made some points. We'll come back to that in a while. First of all, I want to give you a short overview of why stories are important. You may think, I already know why stories are important, that's why I written a story. But then I want to give a short background. Salman Rushdie. Any of you familiar with his works? Okay, he is the greatest novelist in the world. He was born in Bombay and then now he is in the US. So Salman Rushdie told this once. The universe started, we know all the scientific explanations, what came first, whether it's a galaxy or atoms. We have a number of theories. Salman Rushdie is confident that the world started with stories. story is the starting point of the universe, of the world. So it is from the stories that we all evolve and we reach this position. For example, take creation myths. Every society has produced creation myths, from Roman to Greek, Egypt to India. Even if you read a story, the mythological stories, they will all be telling how the world has started. It might have started from an egg, it might have started from something else. Then there will be some demons, and then gods, goddesses, some fancy creatures, and then the world was chaos, and then the order prevailed. It's a story, right? So how the universe came into being. If you ask the how, then we get a story. How this mountain came into being, how we came into being, how this mic came into being, how something is produced. So when you pose a question how, when you ask when, you get a definitive answer. When did the World War happen? 1914. When did the Second World War happen? 1945, 1939. So when you say when, you get an answer. When you say how, you start to narrate a story. So everything starts from how. So Salman Rushdie says the world is created out of stories. We keep producing stories from the mythology to the modern times, and it is stories that makes us human. Nothing else. Because we can create stories, because we can think and we can conceive something out of imagination, we call it a story, and that's how we come into being. So stories are very, very essential component of our existence. It is not a positive activity. Writing a story or thinking about a story or a fiction, a poem, it could be anything. Some imaginary. So that is a wonder. If you can imagine something in your mind and then bring the imagination into the paper, that transformation, that is a mystery, that is itself a story. How you conceive something and you bring it into it. How you choose words, how you choose a sentence, how a paragraph is constructed. So these are all mysterious things. You can never say how you wrote this story because it went into your mind and then you find sometimes you choose this word and the same. You take the same storyline and if you ask 5 of you to write the same story, it will be 5 stories. It will not be the same. Even if you narrate everything, a girl goes to a school and then she does something, she comes back home. With the same story, 5 persons it will be 5 stories, 10 persons 10 stories. Same person can write 10 stories out of a single year because it's imagination. So the power of imagination is beyond anything. So I just want to stress that fact. And then now we will go into the final details of observation that we have made. So Guna can tell me how you came into tell you the plan. We will be interacting among ourselves. I ask you some questions, you will ask me some questions, and then we will interact. And then we will get some idea of how this is going to be. And then I encourage you, all of you, to bombard us with questions. It could be about anything, imagination, story, poetry, it could be anything, editing, it could be anything. So we are here to mainly address your questions because we don't know what exactly you have in your mind. We are to the parents. But we want you to come up with questions. Can be interactive, it has to be interactive. So it will be beneficial to both of us. So I start with Luna. Tell me how you came into writing the story. Can you tell me how the story that was, you would have thought about a number of things. So what will become a story?
Hello everyone. Before I go into that question, I would like to first congratulate you, all of you, for writing everything that I've read so far. I came across a play, some novels, some short stories. They were all genres that I could look into. And before that, since it also led to that question, it was a very nostalgic experience for me to read through all of this because I started writing when I was around the same age as you all. So I started reading when I was in 4th grade and I started writing when I was in 7th grade. So since then I've been writing, but don't worry, none of them were published. But those are all my first drafts. drafts. So from there, I started redeveloping them, rewriting them, and then just scratching them all down, and again starting all over from the idea that I had, and then I also had to change some ideas. But my point is that I started writing around your age, and reading through all these works was a really good trip down memory lane for me. So, and apart from that, I mean, the reason I was very happy to read all this is because there were so many genres that I saw. I saw some fantasy, I saw some, there were supernatural elements, there was thriller, I saw adventures, and there was also one very heart-touching, sentimental story. So I could see all of you have different interests, but the one thing common you have is that you all would like to write. And I'm also very glad for this opportunity, and especially Ms. Fiona told me how this group came about to be. It began as a book club, and then through word of mouth, you all started writing because she found your passions. So that is also very encouraging. I'm so glad you all got this opportunity, and I hope you don't waste it. I wish you would really make use of this opportunity and keep writing. So coming back to the question, I started writing because I was reading. I was a reader for now I think now I'm 24, so I've been reading for more than a decade. I started reading when I was in school, 4th grade, around that time. And I saw lots of novels, novel writers there. So my first book that I ever read was also a novel. It was a novel called Tell Me Your Dreams by Sydney Sheldon. It was a detective thriller, and that's the first book I just suddenly started reading. I had no idea what I was reading. There was lots of things that I could not understand, but I still kept on reading because it was very interesting. So at one point, after a few years, I decided that I also have some things that I would like to share. But I wasn't having any plans of publishing at the time. I just wanted to write and express my own feelings, and sometimes you have all these creative ideas, right? And that is a separate topic. I'll come to it separately because you guys have so many creative things that you're writing. I can't even keep track with them. So I see so much imaginations there. Your plot jumps and genre shifts, and it was a roller coaster completely. So likewise, what I was saying. So I wanted to share some things, and that's how I started writing and rewriting and changing, and eventually I learned that as important as writing, editing is also important. So that is also something I would like to tell you today. But writing in itself, I started writing with poetry. I started writing poems at first, and then slowly began to come to prose, and I started short stories. And then from short stories, in short stories itself, I dabbled with a number of genres. I wrote fantasy short stories, fiction, some historical fiction. So eventually it came down to novel writing. So I never written a play actually, and I was very impressed when I saw the play. I still couldn't finish it completely, but as far as I browsed through, it was amazing. It was a group activity, if I'm not wrong. 4 students wrote it together. It was amazing, especially the character names that you chosen. I remember Starlight, Night Watch. That was very impressive.
First, I want to start with a question before I go into this. Have you tried poetry or short story? Because I saw a number of novel scripts and it's not just for a novel. So any of you have tried poems or short story? Why not? I want to know why. I don't hear from most of you. A novelist and small. Why people focus on novel? You're fascinated by the books that you have read, or you want to start with a novel because novel is something that's big canvas. So why did you start with the big canvas? Or did you already, did you try short story earlier and then you gradually added the novel, or is it began with the novel?
So when we me personally, when I started writing stories, I always felt like, what if I could include that? What if I could include this? Maybe this would turn out like that. Maybe this could be, So it would begin as a short story, but eventually, as I add those elements, it became a novel. So that is one of the reasons why novels is like my writing style.
So everyone else started with novels, I assume.
I'm surprised because people who wants to begin writing career, they begin always with the small genres, short story, letters, poem. Most people start with poem, and then gradually they go into short story, and then they will dream of writing novels sometime, and then they will gradually reach a point. So I'm surprised that the flight has taken, there's no gradual progression, but they started flying. So I'm thrilled by that. Okay, now you tell me, you have written poems as well as short stories. So why did you choose short story as a format to write a story, not a poem? Why?
Basically, it's the structure. I'm not sure if you know the difference between short stories and novel in general. So, we may, at first, you may assume that the only difference between a short story and a novel is the size, the length, and the difference, maybe the number of pages we may assume. But actually, short stories are a lot simpler than novels to write. I mean, to read, they might compress various set of emotions and lots of things that you will go through and learn from a few pages of short stories. But to write, they comparatively to novels, short stories are easier. Because novels have more plots, it has many numbers, it could have either one character or more character, but definitely there are complexities in plots. And there are short novels too, and there are big short stories also. But the reason I chose short stories, the same way we had the doubt and the curiosity just now, because it's more like you go step by step. I took baby steps, poetry, short story and novel, because that is the easier way. I'm very amazed to know you all took very big steps straight away and went to novels.
And a few technical points on that. If you ask me what the difference is between a short story and a novel, as she said, it's not just the size. If it's short, it's a short story, and if it's long, it's not that. For example, any of you heard of James Joyce? Okay, not a teacher, obviously. James Joyce's famous novel is Ulysses. So that novel is just a person's record of a single day. It is 700-800-page novel. Just one day observation. Then the novel is compressed into that. So it is an exploration of a day. By that he explores the life at large and also the society that he lives in, the country, in a way the world, the humanity. You can keep enlarging the scope of that book, but it is a short plot. It doesn't have a big plot. It's a single thought. I observe what has happened around me in a day. That took him 800 days. So is it a short story, is it a novel? If you take the plot alone, what happens to me in a single day is a short story. Actually, the short story will have a very small plot. I went to school, I got lost, how I restored. I mean, something as simple as that. And then I went into the lab. I mixed up various chemical components, and I was trying to get one, and then I got something big, it's a discovery or it's a horror thing that came out, I don't know what. Something else, expecting something and then it out to be something different. So some kind of a twist that happens in there. So the short story is taught in a very humble way, and in the end you reveal something else. It leads into, the incidents lead into something else. A shift happens. That's the short story. So it records a small, could be a small, maybe, but a shift. It's not a linear narrative. I went, I saw, I came back. There's no story in there. Something else should happen in that event. So I don't have to tell you that because I could see that things are happening in your scripts. So you have observed that crux of the story. It is not an everyday event, but something extraordinary. That is recorded in each and every story that I have read today. And a play, of course. One difference that I have not mentioned is non-fiction. I am basically a non-fiction person, she is a fiction writer. So I was happy to find one non-fiction script in the whole bunch. But that was about cryptocurrency, and I don't know anything about cryptocurrency. But the script starts by saying it's addressed to a lay reader, so I thought I could get into that. Who wrote it, by the way? Okay. So still it was difficult for me, but I think I can get into that. So apply my mind, there are given figures, diagrams. I think I can read that. I can understand that. So I got this short story and the novel. I'm happy that you all sort of began with the novel, but I encourage you to first explore different varieties of novels. That is, reading varieties of novels. I said James Joyce, then you should be familiar with that author. Not necessarily you should have read that person, but the name should be familiar because he has invented something new in the form of a novel. So if you say another, for example, Charles Dickens or Jane Austen, you would have heard about those writers. And if you read Jane Austen, and if you read James Joyce, or if you read Tolstoy, and then you read Chekhov, you will know that you should be able to see the difference in their writing, in their presentation. So I would urge you, all of you here, to read as widely as possible. I'm happy you are reading, you are already started writing, but reading is something else. So reading will encourage you, it will inspire you to try out new themes, new forms, new presentation techniques. So everything will happen if you read more and more and more. As far as I could see, most of these stories, not all, are inspired by either films or series. Am I right? Series that we have watched, or movies that we have seen, or it could be comics, or it could be irreverent fiction, I don't know. But most of them are inspired by stories that were written, and you are interested in writing something like that. So if I read a novel, it happens all the time. I read a fantastic short story and say, I should also write something like this, exactly like this. Not that, but that exactly, something similar. I should be able to follow a style, I should be able to explore the theme, something similar to what I have read. This is a very natural instinct. So I saw that instinct arrive in many of these stories. That's a good step. But I also want you to come out of the inspiration. After, not immediately, but after writing a few more drafts, few more stories, I want you to come out of the inspiration and sit quietly and think of your plot in your own. Something that has not been written. There's another saying that I am going to read. If you have a story, if you want a story, if you want to read a story, and the story is not written already, then it's your duty to write the story. So, for example, if it's a war, it's going to be love, it could be anything. If that's already been written, then fine. Then we have to create something new on our own based on our experience. So, I think we now come into the observation area. Aruna, can you please share some of the observation that you have made, and from that we can proceed. And I made all of your participation also and questions so that we can answer them. Dean?
Yes, so coming to the observation part, I wish I had more time to go through them, but as far as I've gone through, I could see, like I already said, I saw so many varieties of genres and plots and how you guys have taken all those chapters along. Chapter by chapter, you have got a structure, you got a structure part down. And the writings, of course, each story was very unique and everything was interesting. But the common thing that I noticed in all of your writings was how you, exactly like what you just mentioned, are influenced by the things that you want to write, and that is very amazing because, like you said, when I was your age, I was doing the same thing. I was writing a lot, and then I'm not sure which number of draft you're on right now, but you have to keep rewriting, editing. You have to go on multiple drafts. In innumerable number of drafts, you have to keep writing, changing. Because with writing, you are writing one thing today, and if you reread it the same thing the next day itself, you might want to change something. You may feel because every day people changes. Every second, every minute, we are all changing. We are having new experiences. You're not the same person you were yesterday because today you might have learned something new, and that would have undeniably changed you in some way or the other. So when you look at your writing that you wrote just yesterday, today you might feel like, okay, let me tweak it a bit here. Let me tinker around. Let me change something. Just let me change this one word, this one sentence, or let me rephrase the whole paragraph and rewrite it in a different voice, a different style, or instead of narration, let me go for description. You may think various things because people change, time change, and of course your ideas also change, and your choices, decision, everything is sort of like a butterfly effect. So I would suggest you have to keep going through the same thing draft over and over again until you feel satisfied with what you've written. And I'm sure no matter how much you go, some writers, we on the other end, no matter how many drafts you go through, we are never satisfied sometimes, which is why we have lots of untouched manuscripts that are just not seeing the light of the day anytime soon. So, and I mean, the main thing, the majority genre that I saw was fantasy. Most of you were writing using fantasy elements, supernatural, isomer magic, magical realisms, and especially there was this one story that was very, very unique. It's named The Mysterious House. Do you have the right idea? That's great. Your name?
We don't provide the right story. My name is
Nice. So, congratulations to both of you. The story was very interesting to read. It was a great read actually. Why I tell you? Because the story begins as a person goes to a house, a new house, but it looks very old. The description is very beautiful. And then it suddenly takes a turn. It's okay. We are assuming the readers are assuming it's a horror theme. So we are fixing our mind that it's a horror genre, and then suddenly fantasy comes in, and then Pokemon enters, and suddenly then there are zombies and monsters with weakness as onions because they have many eyes, and those concepts are very unique. Because onion is just something that we see in everyday life. It's a vegetable that we come across, but taking it as far as embedding it into a fantasy plot and making a monster and an onion come in the same plot itself is very unique. Because you are thinking that you're creating your own ideas there, you're imagining that, and that was very beautiful to see. And which standard are you quoting? 7. That's great. And again, it was very interesting. And then the genre suddenly shifts back to adventure. You are going on a mountain, and it's a race against time to save the world, and you are using the riddles. That was sort of this is what I meant, that there are varieties of subplots in just one story itself. So that was very unique. That's an observation that I made from that story. And there are fantasy elements and many others as well. And I could also see, which stood out to me the most was how most of your writings have a very Western outview. Your geographical locations, the cultural elements that you added, your observations, the character names, they all seem to be they're not local, they're not from here, they're not from India, not from Chennai, not from Vellore. I could see there was a Russian setting, there was one plot that is set in Michigan, there's USA, Canada. I could see lots of those things, and what I would really compliment about that is, I'm sure you have read books which are located there or something, but the amount of energy you put into the research, because those were very well researched and thorough details that you added. I could see names of places in Canada, street names, area names, and all those little intricate details that you added. They couldn't just come just like that. You must have lots of research that was very thoroughly researched work. So for that, I'm sure I was amazed by expecting, I was expecting research to have taken place. Storytelling is one thing, but you have sort of fixed what you want to write. You are very concrete about what you want to write, and that was very beautiful to see.
I won't add more to that. The research that you have done for the story is really amazing, I want to say. And then one more suggestion that I want to add. I have not read any story that happens in Vellore. Because there is no the word literature, take any literary form. You always come across names like US, Canada, Japan, and then in Korea. Recently, Korea has been a fascinating country for me. So I encourage you to write about the place where you belong to, the place where you born, the place you live recently, the place you travel to, like Ooty, for example, it could be anything, but more home. So more and more publishers these days are encouraging us to write about our home, our experience, things that we see, we come across in our lives. So those stories matter. So in addition to the fantasy elements that you are anyway working on, I would also like you to explore things that happen, explore in your own house, in your school, in other places, and then bring them also, not in the same way, because that will not be a story like what happened today. As incident that happened today, happened this time, that's not a story anyway. So you visualize that, you change the setting, you do whatever you want with that. But I would be happy if you see stories happening in Vellore, around Vellore, Karpadi, and then Navadur, and then Avadi, and such places that we are in. So that will be even more nice. So please keep that in mind when you work on the next plot. It could be fantasy, but for example, the demon or the god or the gods can come together also. Not necessarily that they visit always US and Europe and other countries. So we have our own mythology, we have stories, we have invented a lot of stories. Lot of stories are written from India, they have been translated into other places. So writing about the domestic place is equally important, and I would like to stress that fact.
Thanks for that, actually. On that note, I remember something. When I was in college, I had a classmate who wrote a writer called The Sun City. So I did not know what it was. At first, I thought it was maybe my first thought went to maybe it's related to mythology, because mythology, Greek mythology, there's the sun god, and me being a very passionate person about mythologies in general, I thought it's related to some mythology, and I was very interested to read it. But then after reading it, the writer took me by surprise, because the Sun City, the title, it's actually a representation of Vellore. Vellore was her hometown, and she wrote about her hometown because she was studying in Chennai, staying there, and she was missing her, she was having homesickness. She was missing her home, and she wrote the Sun City, and it was a very beautiful writer. I don't remember it fully, but I still remember what I felt while reading it. Because to know that this is a person sitting right next to me, she's a real person, and she may not be able to convey everything that she's feeling directly to me, but she has written it all down. It's like a very personalized sort of letter that someone writes to the self, and you're reading it, and then you realize, okay, so this is what she's going through. She really misses her hometown, and that also made me wonder what Vellore actually looked like, how it feels. Maybe I want to visit Vellore once. So this writer made me feel that. So when he asked that, have you written about Vellore, it just struck me. I remember that portion.
And about another thing, how to convert what happened to us or what we observe into a story. That's another important line. Because we always go for fantasy, what about the reality? So we also have to make stories about the reality. So I want to ask Luna, one of the stories' name is Freedom Fighter Freya. So she has narrated something that she has seen or experience. So she has fictionalized that incident into a story. So I want to help narrate how to convert a real life incident into a story. Because that will read like a fiction also, fantasy also.
So first, I'll just give you a backdrop about what the story is. The story title is Freelance Fighter Freya. It's a short story. It's part of a compilation of book titled God Bless You, Devil Kiss You. So in this short story, why it's called a semi-fictionalized story is because right now, as you can see, you're all writing your imaginative works, and that is great. That is a good place to start. You're on the right track. also, you can't just suddenly start writing about what you feel exactly either. Because there is a balance in between both. Because if you only write about what you feel every day, it becomes a journal. Or if you try to publish it, it becomes an autobiography. So how this story comes into this part is because you have to balance it in the right way. There's a very minute balance between fiction and real life. Because obviously, can you tell me how many of you, when you're writing, imagine yourself as the protagonist or one of the characters that you are writing? Can you raise your hands? Okay, so I'm sure that felt great because that is how we start writing. We can't suddenly start about a third person or an object that we see. We're all very subjective when we're writing, when we begin writing especially. Because we either intentionally or unintentionally, we will add what we feel, what emotions we go through or experience or observations. But you're also writing mostly from what we're influenced by, the style you write, the way you narrate, the setting or the plot you take. Like what we just went through your writings, they may be influenced by the outside world. But the character, what it feels, like there's a character that is who is just going about their day, who sees something, they're having a normal dialogue. Anywhere in between these lines, you will see yourself in there. You could have intentionally or unintentionally convey and express yourself in there. So when I was writing, you have an experience you want to share with the world, but you want to write it in a way that it's a story so people actually don't just take it as facts. Because when you go and tell someone to do something, that's different. But when you make someone feel things for themselves and they choose what they want to do or what they want to take from that experience, that's when storytelling comes in place. So in this story, I had an experience at the movie theater. It was a very bad experience. So it was a it was a very patriarchal experience. I was being given double standards and all that. But I did feel very bad at that moment. But I did not want to write it as just a statement and let it go there. I wanted to write it into a story. So I created a character. I created a character who was a little bit like me, but mostly not. So the only thing that here I'm taking is the incident that happened. So everything else in that short story is my imagination. But that incident is what I'm narrating from my personal experience. But the hardest part is sort of adding this incident into the story without making it obvious. So if I didn't tell you this and you're reading the story for the first time, you're going to think it's a whole story. You will not know that this actually happened to me. And on that note, actually, there was a story that in one of your writers, there was a fish. I saw some fictionalized elements. So there are some places where I found, like I already mentioned, I found those Western geographical locations and references, right? But I also saw someone has written a place called Texenberg. From this story, yes, that's you. That's great actually, that's a great idea. I mean, I could see that it could be coined from Texas and Luxembourg, but I didn't want to jump to the conclusion. But I also could see it was not completely new location. I mean, it's a completely new location that you created, but with some ideas that you already had, right? You're not particularly referring to this place or that place. You created your own place, your own geographical location from what you can find.
Can you tell me about that story? How you came over that story? Why did you choose that name?
I just gave it because after somebody
Hold my closet. I saw the story was incomplete, but for the few chapters that was there, it was very beautiful. All those ideas and narrations that you used, techniques. Did you have an idea how to take the story along before you started writing? Can you tell us about that?
It's a fantastical and magical novel. I had it in my mind since I finished watching Harry Potter, and I made my own story.
Nice.
She wrote it with me.
So it was co-authored.
How did that happen? mean, you have a story and then she has, kind of writing, how you write and then she went ahead with that. How did that happen?
She started writing.
Okay.
So I'm watching her idea. When that idea is matching with my thoughts, I already think those things that why I can't be like that. So when I saw her idea, I thought to join with her.
So you both are part of the same club and you both read this book and you had discussed something. So after this discussion, you decided to write about it. Or you discussed your ideas and then you both decided to co-author and write together. Is that it? Amazing.
So while on the subject, I also want to talk about the play. I think 4 people have come to play. How did that collaboration happen? So now I heard about how 2 persons have co-authored or collaborated. So how did 4 persons come together and, I mean, did you enact the play, did you try acting out or how did it happen? Because plays are not something that happen that people write these days. They always go for, as I said, poem, short story, and then novel. I never play. I have not seen a new play in my life for so many years. People always go for stories, not a play format. How did you arrive at that format first of all? Who suggested to write a play and not a story? I want to know about that.
Who all wrote the play before
Yeah.
students?
Yeah, can somebody explain how the process went on? Yeah.
So basically, I had this idea when I was in 8th grade. Like now I'm in 9th grade, but same month, but a year ago. When there was an, I think Sunfest. Yeah. During Sunfest in last year, I performed a play, As You Like It, by Shakespeare. And I got too much inspired by this, and this crazy idea keeps bothering me. And actually, one day I was in library and I was reading book, and Fiona was like, "So are you guys interested?" And she asked questions, and she was like, "You can join the book club." And I was like, me and Michelle actually we matched our write a lot. So we were like, I shared my idea to her first, then I told to Fiona ma'am, and then she was like, okay, she encouraged us.
I think Fiona ma'am is helping you students in a big way. I think we should congratulate her and then also for the event organizing something like this. Because I have not seen many teachers engaging students in this, but I mean, they mostly will be particular about the marks, about the classes, about the syllabus, and then always marks students. But very rarely teachers come up with ideas to engage students, to make them write, to help them in ways like this. So it's remarkable.
Actually,
Actually, I'm not that good at studies, and like me and Michelle, we're not that good at studies. So like, she never actually judged us by our marks.
It's another remarkable aspect. Thank you.
Actually, about Miss Fiona, I would very much like to congratulate her for this opportunity and how she's taken the initiative to do all this as well. Because I should be saying this, but I wasn't as lucky as you all to have a teacher like her. My teachers that I had during my school, they were exactly the opposite of her. They only focused on marks, academics, and I was forced, literally forced and tortured to only study textbooks. and never set foot in the library. I studied in a school that completely forbade me from entering a library because I was very much into reading novels and books. They identified that, and during my schooling from 8th to 12, around that time, it was a full of war. I had to struggle so I can read and study. And I wasn't old enough to go and tell them the difference between reading and studying, and they didn't know any better. And it was a very hard time for me during school time. So me being here right now is despite all those teachers. But you have a reason, you have a teacher who you can do better because of. And that's a great thing, actually.
Before we proceed further, I want you to just raise your hand and then add on to what you are saying or raise a question, because that will be more interactive. Instead of just me talking about being trying observations or case in the I want more of you to raise your hands, and that's why I recommend to you. So please feel free to interrupt any time. We have got time, but then you can interrupt any time and then you can raise the question so that the discussion can move towards that particular answer. So, you want to continue the observations or I can share? Okay, I have made some observations which I will share. They are not criticisms, they are only areas that you can focus on when you write your next draft or when you improvise the present one or extend it or enlarge it. First thing is, I could see some hurry in the place. Like the story has to be told immediately. The story has to be narrated within 5 pages or within 20 pages or 26 pages. So I could see the hurry tone in several of the stories. So if you are actually writing a novel, then the novel is everything that is opposite to hurry pace. So you can, Zen philosophy, Zen Buddhism. So be that relaxed mode and then take your time and build up the story very, very patiently. Patience is a key word. So this novel can even run 200 pages, 300, 500. You don't have to worry about the page limits because it is a worry of the publisher and the readers. So you don't have to worry about that. As a writer, I want you to visualize the story, novel in larger ways if it's a novel. If it's a short story, then you have to condense it. Since it's a novel that most of you are interested in, I want you to imagine a bigger canvas and then develop that character first. The character should have specific characteristics. So, in order to achieve that, you don't have to create entirely fictional person. You can attribute the characteristics of the person that you have seen, collage them, put them together and then attribute to somebody that William or whatever name that you created. So that person should have individual characteristics. For example, when you say Harry Potter, you can immediately imagine his big glasses and the way he dresses his hair or anyone. You know the personal characteristics of that person. So in some of the stories that I have read, I couldn't see the personal characteristics of a character. What does she look like? What does he look like? There is no description of that person. Curly hair or height, weight, everything matters, right? See, you would have made an imagination about that character. In order for the reader to have shared the imagination, you need to be descriptive. You need to tell the reader how to think. So you need to take time. I'm not saying that you are introducing a Mary in first sentence. You have to write everything about Mary in the same paragraph. No. You can gradually describe that person as the story progresses about Mary's wishes, about what Mary likes, what Mary doesn't like, how she looks like, how she handles the situation, such things. So you have to gradually keep improvising, keep adding more elements of the person, should build the character. And then comes the scene setting. So when you say it could be Vancouver, it could be Vellore, it could be Katpali, Rampur, any place, doesn't matter. But I should be able to hear the sound, the color of the place, the shops that you see, the places, the houses, the people, how they are dressed, how they talk, do they have any specific slang, such things add value to a novel. Because if I write a story with Africa as a background, Nairobi has a background, or any other place, then you will be left in the dark. You don't know that particular place. I have to be patient. I have to tell you, especially when you choose a foreign place, we have to describe that place in a proper way, whether it rains or shines. I couldn't come across any of those references in most of the stories. So, how does the weather look like? How does the person on the street dresses? So, all these things have to be incorporated into a novel. So, you should take your time and build the character, take your time and narrate the background. Such things are very, very important. So there is no need to hurry telling the story. I think some of them are synopsis, so a lot of things are compressed into a few paragraphs. So they can be loosened up and they can be gradually developed into the different pages. And then saw some lines like, next week the week went by, time flew, so such things. So I want to know how time flew. It will not fly on its own. So how does one Wednesday become next Wednesday? So then somebody comes, somebody goes, somebody dies. So that process has to be explained in a greater detail. So the description, more and more of description will add strength to the book. For example, anyone of you have read Talking, Lord of the Rings? Check me. You read or you have seen, watched? Mostly watched. Okay, so I just try a few pages from Tolkien. He stands for descriptions. Sometimes you will feel irritated reading him because he can describe a feather or a bark or a piece of some sand. He can describe that for at least 10 pages. A flower's beauty for 10, 20 pages. And then some shade falls on the on animal. Okay, 20 pages for the shade and 50 for the animal. So the way the animal was, okay, 60 pages. So he just goes on and on. But when you set the mood, when you start reading, you see the shade, you see the animal, you see how the animal takes every step. You see those people. You can almost feel the person, the characters coming out of the book and reaching out to you. So that kind of, you don't have to write 70 pages of description, just telling you as reference. So these are the things that are being done. So more character building and more scene setting and more description. Yeah. And then dialogues. So most of the dialogues that I have seen were short, like almost like a series or as in movies, like subtitles. So dialogues can be enriched, they can be free flowing and not really up to the situation. It can also include some casual conversation and all, because that's how we talk. We don't always talk then, not always, not in that manner, right? We tend to talk a lot. So that kind of characteristics should also be incorporated in novel. Some can have conversation in a short sentence, some can beat around the bush and then come to the matter. That is a person's character, then that should also be incorporated in the novel. That he or she is such a person. And then many of you might have thought about a movie and then a series in your mind when you visualize the story, so that can be changed. And then the cuts that almost like in the cinema. So suddenly something happens, suddenly got cut, and then something else jumps up into another scene. And so such things don't happen in your life. Things happen at their own pace. So I wanted to explore more before that cut happens, and then what happens during that cut, and why such things, why there is a division between two chapters. So those things can be explored. We have been at all those aspects.
So most of what was told just now can be rectified by the following. So apart from being a writer and translator, I'm also an editor. So an editor's job is to proofread, look through the finished draft or manuscript and make changes in it, rephrase it for the better, and talk to the author and finalize how the book can be enhanced before it goes into the hands of the readers. So from what I was seeing, I think all of you need to reread what you just wrote. before. Not just the rewriting part, you have to read it again, over and over again, and look through. Because at this age, I think you must be around 7, 8, 9 grades, right? That is the right time to strengthen your foundation for the language. So I can see lots of places that needs improvements, like grammar, punctuation, spelling, and the tense inconsistencies. And for writer, it's very important to create your own style. So to write your own style, you have to finalize. Like you're going to have more descriptions or narrations, or you're going to take which voice, passive voice or direct active voice, and you have to finalize all these things and decide, and have to make it a conscious decision. Of course, when writing, it just comes as a flow, right? You can't do all that. So once you are finished with a chapter, let's say a chapter or a few chapters, once you're done for a while, and then you reread it again and make the changes yourself. So you have to edit it over and over again before you feel like writing more. So when that happens, more ideas come as well. And when you note down and take it, you slow down your pace and your ideas don't get jumbled, and you don't write hurried as it was just told. You will not write hurried. You will be very patient with what you write. You can sort of concentrate and organize your ideas and thoughts in a more better way, with more clarity, I think. And based on what was told about descriptions, I found one story, especially with very beautiful and rich descriptions. 4 satyas on the field. Who wrote that? So that was very beautiful for the descriptions. And if I'm not wrong, that is the same story which had a lot of Russian geography, right? Yes. Can you tell us more about why you chose that setting, the plot?
So actually I chose the Canadian region. I chose that because it felt nice. I always wanted to go to Canada. So I did some research. I found the place, the street names, what language they speak. They mostly spoke French there. So there were a lot of French words there. I love French too. I love French. Yeah.
Yes, actually, I was wondering, since when you're writing about a local thing that you experienced, you can make readers feel that as well. But since it was a Russian backdrop, and I could still feel those descriptions were very rich, and it was almost as if I was seeing. So I was wondering if you had actually seen it, it was that rich. So that was very beautiful, the descriptions. And also the genre, it was thriller genre, the way you took the plot, it was very nice. So I hope you don't stop writing, I hope you finish that story. And regarding the time jump, time flew by, all those comments you just made. About that also, I saw that in most of the stories, and especially there was one story that got me very curious. It was also a very cute, very heartwarming story. I Got You Flowers. Okay, so that story, it was very beautiful, heartwarming, which made me wonder how a school student can write that deep, that emotions in the first place. So, can you tell me how you came across with the plot?
I always wanted to write a romance kind of a story, and when I got a chance, I wanted to do it with the idea which has a starting and an ending, where the first line says I got the flowers and the last line says I got the flowers, but in the first line, when we read it first, it feels like a husband is getting his wife flowers, but in the last scene we realize that he is getting flowers for the symmetry.
Yes, that was very beautiful and tragic at the same time. And I did notice the flowers part in the beginning as well as the end. But another thing that I noticed in the beginning was, that's what I meant when I said cute, that you dedicated it to Miss Fiona.
So she's always with me, she's always happy back, so I wanted to do it for her.
That's very nice, very sweet of you. So the time jumps, what I meant was, so the story begins and there's the birthday happens, and then once the parents pass away, and again she goes into panic attack and she wakes up, and then some time passes after the funeral, suddenly she's 11 years old or something, she's in 11th grade. Yeah, and then again more time passes, and then she spends some time with friends, and then she goes to college. Time moves back and forth. Here too, I noticed how detailed you were with your research about the Western culture. Like you were very detailed about the 2 hours flight to Michigan and all that. That was very impressive actually. So the time zones here, that there's what I just mentioned, you could add more. Instead of just those time zones, you could give some more details. How the time flew by, was it in misery, was it in boredom, how you were feeling when the time passed, was it in a blur, you couldn't focus on anything, what was the mental state of the protagonist when the time flew by. You could give as much details as possible there. So that was what I felt there about the time gap. It was a very beautiful story actually. Since like, how could we even, which grade are you in? Seventh grade writing that deep plot. It was truly amazing.
Thank you so much.
I think we'll ask class some questions. Based on the comments that we just had, we have some doubts or some alternate opinions or anything like that. Observations, preferably questions about writing, editing, anything that comes to your mind. We have a free-flowing conversation. Don't mind about the framing the question or that. Just come up with your observations. English, Tamil, they don't know anything. எழுதும்போது எதாவது டவுட் வருது அவங்க இந்த மாதிரி எழுதலாமா அந்த மாதிரி டவுட்ஸ் வருது. ஸோ அந்த மாதிரி எதாவது எழுதுனா நீங்கள் இது ஸ்டோரியா எஸ்
How do we write different perspectives?
different perspectives. Very interesting question.
You need to ask how to write different perspectives as in different characters, right? In a novel, from one character's perspective and from another character's perspective. So for that, you have to, I hope you're reading a lot of books already. So you can first read a lot of perspectives. So when you're writing, you have to note down, like I mentioned, you have to organize your thoughts. First, you have to clearly come up with which character is going to have which personality. For example, you have a protagonist and you have another protagonist. Maybe you have two protagonists and then you have an antagonist. They all must have a backstory. They all must have their own character traits. One person will be arrogant, one person will be very sweet and kind. They all will have certain characteristics that is very natural to them, right? And there must be a plot going on, like from a bird's eye view. There must be a bigger plot going on, and these are just characters. So when you're thinking of perspectives, you're not seeing the story from only one side. You're actually seeing a story is progressing, and you have multiple characters, and multiple characters play different varieties of roles, because every action will inevitably change the plot. So first, I would suggest you have to write down, take lots and lots of notes. Apart from external research, you have to create your characters, their personalities, what is their backstory, what is their cause, what are they going towards. So in case if it's an antagonist, what is his purpose? What is he hoping to achieve? If it's a protagonist, what is he doing? What does he want in life? So you must write their purpose, their backstory, everything. You must write them down separately. So from based on that, you when you are concocting the whole story, you come up with how to balance them, and then that's where your role as writer comes in. You take the plot forward, using all these notes that you've taken. You have to organize your thoughts, write them down. Because what you write yesterday might change tomorrow, like I said. So you have to write them down, and if you're changing it, you're taking it somewhere a bit there, you have to go back to your draft and change it everywhere, wherever you mentioned it. So when writing perspective, you're also putting yourself through those different characters, right? So based on the backstory and cause you have given, character that you created, you have to think from that character's point of view when you're writing this, and not think about, you have to shift shoes, literally. You have to shift from one mode to another. Suddenly you're writing from the protagonist view, and then you have to turn into an antagonist to write about the antagonist view. Is what I would say as a fiction writer. Let's see what a non-fiction writer has to say.
Yeah, actually she said proper introduction to all the perspectives for I had a few points on that. I think as a creator, this is where the power of observation comes. So I may be a man, but I am also observing women. I am seeing their girls, boys, and then animals, and an elderly person, Tata party. I'm seeing so many people in real life. So we should put ourselves in their shoes and think about it. For example, I saw the word shadows in many of your stories. Shadows of these shadows of that light and darkness. This is forever, a constant presence in most of your stories. The war between light and darkness, the war between just and unjust, the war between right and the wrong. So when you say right and the wrong, you don't automatically think that right is always right and the wrong is always wrong. It doesn't work that way. For example, a dark person might have some moments of light, or a hero or a heroine can have some drawbacks in it, some dark areas. So we need to explore those fields as well. And then I should know more about the other words, not necessarily my own word. I should be able to understand how an elderly person thinks, how a child thinks, how a girl thinks, how a man thinks, every possibility. So if I don't have that capability, my writing will be restricted to only things that I know. For example, I write only about man's stories. That's what happened in literature, So most of the people write only man's word because they are men, and then they can think only about men's problems and then the problems that they encounter, that they see. So they see women as a second gender, so they also put their face down when they write. So these things changed when women came into the writing. So I'm glad that I see many girls here. So when you write the story, you invert things that you see. So you want to create an alternate word, or you want to criticize the word that we use. So when you do that, you think about the other person. So you think about man, you think about woman, you think about animals, all life forms. So for example, how we get a demon. We don't know how a demon looks like. We have not seen one. But we still go into the mind of the demon. We go into the mind of the god and the goddess. We haven't encountered any god or goddess anywhere. But we know more about the god and the goddess. How? Because we imagine. So the power of imagination will allow you to explore the other world, other persons. When you go into, you travel into another person's mind and spirit, and then you become the other person. So that's how perspectives work. So you become another person and write from that person's perspective. That adds, kind of the word that you already mentioned about light and darkness. That will strengthen when you think from the villain's point of view, not just from hero and heroines. When you think about the villain, you find some elements. Yeah, she's right. So you bring those things also into the story, and then you enrich the story. So, any other questions? I want each of you to ask at least one question. Yes, please.
Hello. So my name is Aziz, and as you know, I'm writing a book on this finance and cryptocurrency thing.
What?
Finance and cryptocurrency. So you are a beginner. I want to know about as you are a beginner, how would you like to learn about it? In what form? More like a guide, or more like a storifying thing, or more like a normal general thing where I only explain about formal terms of language where I use about this.
So for a beginner reading that subject, it's better to avoid the technical terms, and if you take a storytelling approach with the same topic, because let's say if I take any subject, economics or something, there's a demand and supply chain that I'm trying to explain to someone, and they don't know anything about what is demand, what is supply, they don't know anything about economics, but I have to tell them what it's about. So I can easily go and say that there is one pen available, but nobody wants it, and what is its price there? I can say that. So if I go through examples, so this is a very bland example that I took here, but when you are writing stories, you take it a little more deeper and with more examples that are more narrative, rather than just saying in a bracket, example this. Instead of that, you will increase the examples that you are saying and also elaborate them into storytelling process. And once you're maybe done with a paragraph or two paragraphs of doing this called technically. So what we just learned is what we call this in finance. So if you take an approach like that or something similar to that, it will be great for a beginner who reads a dry subject like that. Okay.
Thanks.
Actually, I would suggest that first you check about your strength. If you are a fiction writer, then you should choose fiction as your way of communication. If you are a non-fiction writer, you should choose to write for non-fiction.
But my main motto is to like involve these people, you know, the beginners.
I am also one of these people.
Yeah. So like even if I take this school, hardly some 50 to 60 members will be knowing about this, and I want more people to engage in this so that everyone gets benefits of what it is. Yeah. I want them to understand in a better way and a simple way. So even if I take it as a story thing where two people are doing this thing, the cryptocurrency thing, and one is guiding another guy, which is the idea is given the Fiona number. It's like, do I have to implement it like that for beginners, or do I have to continue with the technical thing?
Okay, my opinion. There is a restriction to the format of the story. You can't go beyond certain boundaries in your fiction as your vehicle. For example, as you said, you can make three characters, and we can make them talk. What is cryptocurrency? I don't know. I was going to say, okay, I'll tell you. When will you tell me? I'll tell you now. What is
More like a conversation.
more like conversation, but it will become tedious after a period of time because there is no story in that story. There is only conversation that is happening. Because you are forcing information into a story and you try to make it a story. That will not work as a story, according to me. It might convey a meaning, but then it is not a story. So, my suggestion would be to, if you want to introduce cryptocurrency, you cannot bring all the elements of the cryptocurrency into a story. It is not possible at all. So, you can create an appetite for cryptocurrency through a story, an interest in cryptocurrency. Just a few essential points of cryptocurrency and make a story out of it. That's it. You can't go into the full explanation. So, and then after reading that story, a lay person like me will be interested. I will say, oh, this story is very interesting. Let me go to other books and then learn more about cryptocurrency. That's how I go about new things. For example, Isaac Asimov was written. Any of you have written Isaac Asimov? Okay, he has written about robotics, and is a pioneer in that field. So, if you read Asimov, you will naturally be interested to know more about robotics. Because the story creates a lot of possibilities about what robots can do and cannot, whether a robot can lie, whether a robot can kill, whether a robot can understand human language. There are a lot of elements that are added into the story. So, when you read that story, you will be encouraged to read more about robotics. So that's how the story helps. It will push you from one place to another. It will inspire you. At max it can inspire you. It cannot completely educate you. Because if you start educating people through story, if you want to introduce robotics as a story, then it will become tedious after a certain point of time. Because there will be repeatedly only conversation. Oh, how does this work? How to approach the time? Okay, then can I do it online? Yes, you can do it online. Set Kirish. How can I do it online? Ask Babu. So such conversation will become repetitive. So my suggestion would be to create appetite, and then story completes, and then go and take another form. A fiction writer can be a non-fiction writer. Non-fiction writer can be a fiction writer too. So once that story appetite is created, then you create your own thing that you already done. I think this is a good format. I like this format that you written, which introduces the concept. What are they? What is money? Money on its own has no value. You have written very clearly. I can understand that. To build it as a story, then somebody will have to give a lecture on what is money. So a lecture inside the story will be boring because I will be expecting a story when I read a story, and I will be expecting information when I read non-fiction. So that's what I feel.
I actually have two contradictory statements to this, but you can please take a seat. I will have to stand. So first thing, when it was told that you cannot take the story forward after a point of time if you're only being very information oriented here, other. Actually, I think that is a very narrow-minded observation. I mean, I'm saying it's still possible. For example, maybe if you're taking it as a story, as between two characters and it's just dialogues and narration, it will end, it will come to an end eventually. But if you could take it as maybe, let's say, a teacher of finance, or a professor, a teacher, or someone from that field of line who is trying to teach. But then there are so many characters around, right? He has his students, he has a whole classroom full of people, he has his superiors, his colleagues, his own personal life, and everywhere you could just keep this professor or someone as a protagonist who is going to be the main lead to get the information across. And there will be multiple subplots around. It doesn't have to stick to just 2 or 3 characters, and you could bring from various perspectives. Lots of conflicts could arise, and how you can say how this specific subject that you're trying to educate is actually beneficial. I mean, this is just one of my suggestions, but there are so many ways if you want to, if you're really interested in taking across your message in a storytelling aspect, there are ways to say the story is what I believe. And the other thing is how you create an appetite. That is something that I agree with actually. Because for me, I read lots of young adult fictions and fantasies when I grew up, and I never came across a mythology book as such. But right now I'm very passionate about mythology, not because I went and sought mythology in general. The mythology was just here and there sprinkled around in the books that I read. Some mentions in the passing here and there, like there was Apollo or something was mentioned there, and immediately I went Googled and read books about it, checked what it means, and then that's how those books created the appetite for me, and then I went on my own and researched and found, and then that interest came to me. So that is also another approach you could actually take. I agree with that one. So yeah, that's one. And also on a side note, may you know how you came across this interest that you'd like to write a book about cryptocurrency?
So basically, it's like during lockdown, I was getting so bored, and my PS4 was broken from like my dad broke it because I used to play for horse and horse. So and then I came across these articles where people are making money and people are investing in cryptocurrencies. And more likely, I came to know about it when the market crashed during the COVID. So this was the best time to invest in it. And from then, it's like almost 4.5 years now. And it's like learning about it and being more involved in it will make you acquire knowledge and rather than just being so boring. And it's basically like if you want freedom, you can continue with this. It's basically just the investment where you have the surplus money of your earning and or your savings where you invest in this and develop your money instead of wasting it on other things or like partying or something like that.
That's a great progress that you made from just a writer that you came across, you read on that and then you researched and you've been researching and reading, you've been encouraging your own passion. That is great. I hope you publish your book someday about cryptocurrency.
Sure.
Also, since we are talking about creating an appetite and mixing the storytelling and aspects and what you want to your message across, I also came across another story that I think I have to mention. It was noteworthy. The heaven turned into hell. May I know who the author of this is? Which standard are you in? Eighth. That was a very beautiful story. If I have to pick one from all the stories that I have read, I would choose this one. And it is for reasons that are very contradictory as well. You see, I am a person who is averse to the subject mathematics. And this story has math in it. But still I ended up liking the story because of the way it was so beautifully narrated. Because the story begins in a house from a protagonist who likes his uncle, and his uncle is, I'm sure you all of us have read this story, right? You know what I'm talking about. Or if not, you have to read it. So this story takes a completely different turn suddenly. It goes, the genre shifts I could see. And at first I thought it was a thriller or magical realism, the fantasy elements were there. And amidst all that magical elements, and suddenly you're in a magical world stuck there, and if you want to go back, the one thing. And that is you have to solve a math problem. And that was, I was stuck for a few minutes because that is a genre, something else. You don't expect math questions to come there. But I think that this would make, if you develop and publish it, this would make a very great children's fiction story. Because I'm sure, like me, many people would not like math. But you too. So for people like us, when you read that, you're not just taking yourself away from reality, but you're also grounded, and at the same time, you're also having fantasy elements. So that is a really good balance, if you ask me. And the message, can you tell me what the message you intended at the end? If you could explain it.
Actually, I got the story when I was studying 7th grade. I don't remember how I just started that. Before that, in 6th grade, I wrote 2 stories in my classmates. That was on the base of zombies fiction. But I wrote this story because I like science, I like math, and this work is based on me. Because I can do some big sums, but I will, on a hurry, I will say the wrong answer for the simple sums.
So you put yourself into the character. You saw yourself as the protagonist there.
So that, and I like science. I want to, my ambition is to become a scientist. On that base, I wrote this story.
Yeah, I couldn't actually figure out what the genre was. There was thriller, there was magical fantasy, and then there was some science fiction elements as
I
well.
gave that work because at end there will be your questions. I don't know what question can I ask in that. So I made this. I linked that work to the question. I asked Fiona ma'am about this in book club, and she told it's very good. You can go. Then I completed that. It took 2 weeks to complete, but I planned this before. I completed this 2 weeks before.
Wow. And I agree with her comment. It was a great story.
Thank you.
So what I took from the story is, especially the storytelling and the realism, how you mix and balance them both, that is very impressive. At the end of the story, the moral that I took from it was very beautiful. It was simple and yet something that most people overlook at times. The message that I got was, even simple things are hard sometimes. So there's a mad genius, the protagonist's uncle, who got the answer wrong. And someone who's not so good at math ends up answering it at the time. So, like he mentioned, people can get sometimes flustered, even if you know the answer, right? So that was a very simple as well as normal thing. It was a natural thing. You writing about what you experience, all those natural things is what you also agree with, right? You were saying about your experiences, local experiences and identities. So that was a very beautiful story. I am sure you all must read it if you haven't already. So anyone else has any questions? Yes, please.
I'm Dylan, and I'm not into the story writing genre, but more of a travelogue writing person. I'm actually kind of figuring out what kind of genres to write more. So I don't do pleasure writing. It's just that when I'm in the mood, I write something, about my personal experiences. So Fiona actually suggested that I write travelogues. So I've written my travelogue and I think it's
Maybe you can make it be better than real idea.
So what are your ideas on how to improve my travelogues? Like travelogues that I can post on the net and people will find it enjoyable to read. And they would say that, oh yeah, that's some travelogue.
I
happy you talked about travelogue because that is one of the areas that I like. I like to read travelogue. So I also write short notes on the
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me, sir. I wish to add on to what Darren just said. I'm sorry that I couldn't submit his submission. I'll just make it over to you. So what he had written in that article was he visited Cochin with his family. So it was a travelogue on what they did, what they had. It was very well written piece. I'll definitely make it to you.
One of my favorite travel writers is Norman Lewis. And one of the can you hear me now? Yeah. So Norman Lewis is a phenomenal travel writer. He's one of my favorites. Okay. So he has written around 20 books. He has traveled extensively all over Indochina. For example, Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. He has turned up with trilogy book that I read. One of my favorite. Travelogue is a global, it's a global event. It's loved by everyone from fiction writers to non-fiction writers. It's a best genre to choose in non-fiction. So if you are reading for Cochin, then it's a wonderful place to start. So you can write about this. The place dominated by Malayalam people, and then you have Jews there in one particular bit of Matanjeri. So and you find fishermen, you see the Chinese mates there. So it's a global thing. So if you visit Cochin, then you can visit the whole world. Some people do that. So it's a microcosm of the entire world. So as I said, Norman Lewis is one such travel writer, and then you have Bill Bryson. So I will compare the two persons. Bill Bryson uses humor in his travelogue. So he jokes very often, and then he comes up with some casual, laughable observations, and you end up, laughing once every few days. Norman Lewis, on the other hand, is a dense writer, and he gives a rich background of his ethnicity. For example, if he goes to Vietnam, you will get almost, you will also be reading history of Vietnam in the travelogue. So you can consider those things. If you are going to write about Cochin, then you can give an overview of that place, a short history, historical framework of how Cochin came into being, how the Cochin was built, and how the Jews came to be there, how come that the Jews are living, so many people are living in one particular person, in one particular area. So you come up with, when you ask those questions, and then the travelogue, as you ask more questions, the travelogue will improve. It will expand to include from folk tales to history to sociology. You can cover so many topics. And then the format that you choose to write can be fiction, not a fictional book entirely, but you can use a jolly, free-flowing language so that people can read what So you can use those creative elements when you write as a plot. But when you detail, when you narrate, when you explain, then you can use all the background information that you gather. You can describe in rich detail about the flora, the fauna, the people that you met, and then you experience. You come as a person in that whole travel. Even if you don't mention your name, even if you don't write anything about you, it will tell more about you. Because it is from your point of view that we get to read the entire travelogue. So travelogue is a good place to start, and then I'll be happy if you finish that, and I look forward to reading that.
Could you tell what you really liked in our play? What things that you like?
Sorry, can you repeat?
Can you tell what you really liked in our play? Things that we can improve on, and like overall animation of our play?
Actually, like I mentioned, we couldn't finish reading the play. So as far as I browsed through, I really like the characterizations and how consistently maintained. The setting, the characters was really great, and the dialogues was also very unique. I don't think you're doing a great job with the dialogues as well. in 4 computer since I love the continuity throughout the plot. We can say something more.
Actually, I need more time to explore the play because it was quite big compared to the other plays, so to concentrate fully on that. So I'm going to take the play with me when I leave. So I will probably write to you or the man and then share my But as I said, nobody writes plays these days, so that you get special focus anyway.
So actually, I did wonder how you came with the character names. That was the really unique part for me. All 4 of you, I knew it was a joint effort. May I know how you came across the names, because it gave me some nostalgia about the books that I read when I grew up. The character names especially, Starlight and Night Watcher. You guys told me you were at the library reading books, right? When before this process began, did any of you read a book by Sarah J. Maas? Yes, J. Maas. No.
You mentioned Shakespeare or something?
Yeah, as she had part of a play, as if you like it. So this author is someone I was reading as I grew up. S. J. Maas, Sarah J. Maas. She is one of the leading young adult authors right now. So when I went through your play, I was reminded of her works a lot. Her style and just the writing style actually. Even though she writes novels and this was a play, for some reason it just struck me, that similarity struck me. So how did you come across the character names? It was very beautiful.
So actually we used a very special technique. So we would find some character names in our library in various books. Since we cannot use them directly, we'll just jumble them up.
Camouflage.
Yeah. So that was one of the way. And for the main characters, that is actually we used many of our names in the character names and developed them at the beginning. Then for the rest of the characters, we jumbled them.
The impression that I got from the play is the play can easily become a 300-400 page book. I think it has got that potential. It is densely packed and then it has got so many, the scene changes. I like the way the book, the stage starts. The play starts and then we have the theme brackets, the scenery described, and then Act 1 and Scene 2, and then those things are all properly documented. So I like that format. I will read it fully completely before commenting on it.
Anyone else? Or maybe if it's not questions, you would share your comments, something about your favorite authors. I don't know, pass it.
So you can tell about one writer that you like.
It is an interaction session if you remember, so please remember to interact.
Your favorite writer, Laura mentioned the name. One name or multiple names.
My favorite writer is Joseph Murphy, the author of Power of Subconscious. And I get this name because to answer your question that you asked, what model did you write this story? It's the point.
Can you keep the mic closer to you?
The moral is with Stafford, wrong is not always because he will say the answer wrongly, but it will be a correct answer. Because in the world, the wrong answer will be correct answer and correct answer will be wrong answer. So,
Yes, that's a nice idea. Actually, your perspective is what you wrote. That's what I wanted to know. Your originally intended message. That's beautiful. It's very complex and it's also going to be very, readers are going to have different perspectives when they read it. And that's what makes a fiction beautiful.
actually, when coming in my bus, many of my friends have touched me. When I told them, they don't, it's good. But I thought it will not be good. I thought it would be silly at the end. what they will speak.
Yeah, it's not different, right? You can tell me about your favorite authors and why you like them.
My favorite author is Jeff Kinney, who wrote Very Very
Diary of Wimpy Kid.
Yes.
Oh, I grew up reading them too.
So I like his style of writing where he includes, it isn't a complete plot twist. He brings in a character and then he brings in the character's essence later in the story. So I like that.
So if you like Diary of a Wimpy Kid, you might also like the other series, Diary of a Wimpy Vampire. Have you heard of that? That is a nice series too. Similar to this. So after reading Diary of a Wimpy Kid, I moved on to that series. You might like it very good. So everyone can ask questions, and only if you don't have questions, we are saying you could say your favorite author. So questions are still there.
My favorite author is Jan Martel, who wrote Life of Pi. I like his because his writings are if you read any other story, we always know that obviously the ending somehow or other. But his writings are not like that. It's so different, and he specifies every single details, and I like his writing so much.
It's a philosophical text. It's also a densely packed philosophical text. Not just a story that happens on the surface, but more things happen, behind the screen.
Yeah, and actually he's not an Indian, but he specifies about India's Chennai, and he specifies a bookstore in Chennai, taking Buddhas and food in Sudapam, Italy, and I also like that. My favorite author is Liz Begon. She wrote this series called Tom Gates, which made me laugh very much. That's the book which I read and laughed, and I love reading that book.
What's the name of the author?
Liz Begon. Because she scribbles all over doodles here and there in the book. She just draws the face of protagonist here and there, his sad face, his grumpy face, that's her book. My favorite author is Rachel Reddy Russell. She wrote the series of Dog Diaries. I liked her writing because her emotion conveying was so strong, and it made me laugh all the time when she's writing down funny incidents, and it made a great influence on me. And that series is the first series I read completely from a particular author. Today I asked though to write the story that I can write in my point of view or in the point of view of the character itself.
So actually, that is a very good question. So you can write, actually when you write a story just from your perspective, like I told, it will become an autobiography. When you're writing your story, you see there is Abdul Kalam's autobiography and many notable people's biographies and autobiographies, right? Biographies are when someone writes about someone else. Autobiographies are when they write about themselves. When you write it, sort of like an entry, like today this happened, the next day this happened, date-wise, it becomes a journal, it becomes a diary, journal entry. So when you write it completely as this, my whole life story, when you write it that way, it becomes autobiography. But when you're sure you want to go into storytelling, but you also don't want to leave your experiences out of it, that is when you put yourself inside the characters. Like many of you have written, when you've written, your fellow classmates and schoolmates have written characters. When they written these characters, they thought of themselves. They put some elements inside them. For example, you can say you like chocolates. And the character that you write about may like chocolates. Similarly, you can put your likes and dislikes on this character, your personal characteristic traits, your emotions, what you're feeling, any incident that happened to you and how you reacted to it or how you wish you would have reacted. That is also semi-fiction when you're writing storytelling. You could just say, okay, okay, this experience happened to me, but I wish I had acted different. I wish I did something else. You have some sort of regret. That time you can also write a story and you can put your wishes on these characters as well. And at the same time, it shouldn't be too much because that will stress out the character. You have to find out, you have to write a lot and find that balance. So when you are writing a character, it's still possible to put yourself inside the character and write. It could be a protagonist or a sub-character or antagonist, any character. So it's still possible without making it into an autobiography. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, hello, I have a doubt. That's how to merge two ideas together to form the same idea. Like, if I have an idea and he has an idea, how can we combine both of those ideas to form a new thing?
You're asking? You're asking about a collaboration, right? When you go out in the work, how you like to inculcate both ideas without letting go and compromising on the other. I would say it's better when you're widening the scope instead of letting out any portions of each other's ideas. I would suggest you can widen the scope, the whole plot and the perspective, the possibilities itself, so that all of your ideas could go in. And if you feel like it's not working out, it's contradicting or clashing with each other's ideas, what you can do is maybe change the timelines. Like maybe at the beginning of the story something could happen, one idea, and maybe later something else could happen. You can change the timelines or how the plot flows. But still you can find different places inside the book itself where you can embed and connect your ideas, both ideas, without compromising on one or compromising anyone.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Felicia. My favorite author is Rick Riordan. He wrote the series of Percy Jackson and Prometheus. My story is actually inspired by him. I love the way he creates Percy Jackson's whole entire world and how the gods come to New York and on top of the Empire State Building. And he depicts humor and adventures, and the genre sometimes shifts to how Percy Jackson's crushes and stuff. I really like that.
That is what I also mentioned. When I grew up reading books like this, where in passing mythologies would be mentioned, and after reading those books, I went into mythology as a subject and developed interest on it. So we have that in common.
So I'm Nikshay, and my favorite author would be not really an author, but like two people. So one would be like J.R.R. Martin for his work on, and then the other one would be Stephen King for works like those, because I come from J.R.R. Martin. So J.R.R. Martin is considered as one of the greatest when it comes to world building. He can literally build worlds out of nothing. So he creates an entire world which captivates his audience. It pulls them in. That's why he has like one of the most, from his stories, one of the most successful TV shows were created, Game of Thrones. And while coming to Stephen King, many consider him as having a wider stretch, because most of his stories have become a massive hit with the general audience. As well as when they were turned into movies, those are two blockbusters in the cinemas. So not really like favorite authors, but I would consider those two as my inspiration. And yeah. So I will just like to inform one thing. So our script we have completed it like the first draft. So there would be like still some plot continuities. So hope you know. Thank you.
All the best to you. And I hope you can also one day create your own world, just like you are inspiring author. I can also see a lot of resemblance to that in your script as well. We have royalties, kings, queens, and fight for the throne, the crown. It's great. You're right, Jack.
an amazing map. Who can do this? Really amazing, because I mentioned Tolkien needs that. Tolkien books we have will carry a map.
Yes.
All imagined places he marks, and then every creature marked and named, geographical location marked. So this is really amazing. Yet is no one thought. Devil's Foot Mother is also here.
It's actually very interesting. When you were reading, you were wondering what is this devil's foot massage, and then you realize it's a place.
The mountains, rivers, and then everything. Nice.
Good luck for the both of you. You better finish the story, you complete it, and hope you can publish it someday.
I've actually been holding on this question since the beginning of this. How do we deal or manage with negative comments from others? Because whatever we do, even if we follow what others want us to do, they will still have something to say. So
your question is about the criticisms that you're getting, the comments. My personal belief to that is, if it's a constructive criticism, which is actually it's a feedback that is going to help you improve yourself, you can take it. Otherwise, if it's just some criticism from someone who doesn't know, or you feel like they're just commenting on it, it's a negative comment that is very uncalled for. If you feel like that, I would suggest you just care about what is positive, and if there's anything else, just ignore it. Because there's this quote that I really like. Mike also doesn't like using it. So this quote is, I don't care what you think about me unless you think I'm awesome, in which case you're absolutely right. So I'm not saying we have to be very self-centered and narcissistic, but also you need to know how to differentiate between constructive criticism and criticism in general. So you shouldn't let all those criticism, you have to compare and find, like if what they're saying is actually right from your work. You are the one who have put your hard work, you have spent your time, energy to create something. And if it's someone who hasn't done anything, and let's say they only have negative comments on it, you might have to take a step back and think, do I deserve to be told this? Do I deserve to listen to this? Should I take this in? And then you make a conscious decision to just ignore it. Because people will keep saying things and it will keep falling on your ears. But what is within your control is whether you take it inside or not. You can just hear it and take it in 1 year and leave it the other year. And when you get positive comments at the same time, let's say you get lots of positive comments, at the same time you should make sure that you're not just settling there. You're not getting smug or okay, I've reached the height. You should never settle down for what you should never settle down for anything before reaching what you actually wanted, just because you got a lot of positive comments as well. So I think both criticisms and feedback is just meant to enhance you, improve you, and develop you, and also to support you, of course. So it shouldn't in any way stop what you're doing. Either way, you just have to keep doing better, and if you feel like what you're doing is better, I think that's it. If you feel like what you're doing is best, and if you feel like you've given your best, then I think that's well and good enough as it is.
And I also think that it's a package. You're going to be a writer, you are going to be criticized, you are going to be appreciated, and somebody is going to say this is a bad book, and somebody is going to say it's a good book. So all those that students have mentioned, everyone considers, not that everyone considers them a great writer. For some they are great writers, and for some they are trash writers. If you go and ask anybody about Tamu, somebody will say he's a great poet, he's a great writer. And there's always another person who is going to say, okay, but I'm not as great as someone else. And then he doesn't write poetry, he doesn't write good poetry, he doesn't know how to write short stories. So you get to hear this very often. So there is no one writer in the world who is appreciated by everybody. So if you're going to be a writer, then you are a writer already, because you are going to be criticized and you are going to be appreciated. Both are going to happen.
And there's also another thing, like for example, when you grow up and you actually become an established author and you have lots of, let's say, books coming up and have manuscripts, and you have your own fan base and sort of people waiting to read your books, you have readership across. That is when you think about your target audience and what you want to write. But I think right now, you're not writing for readers, you're writing for yourself. So you just have to write what you want to read, what you like to write, and you're going to think of writing just for yourself. Right now, you're not thinking about who is going to read your work. That will take a long time, and when that comes, you can think about what you want to write for others. Even then, I'm sure you cannot, as a writer, you can never satisfy everyone. Because for someone, they have specific genres, right? They will only like one writer. What you just said, you might like one writer, but I might not like the writer, even if I like the same genres. Because the way a writer says something, the way they say it, it's going to resonate and click with just some people. It's what we, in this generation, we call it as vibing, right? We and the author will have same length sometimes, say wavelength at sometimes. But with some authors, they may not have it, even if they are well-known, great award-winning authors, they're not going to have that. So you just have to think of that way. It's just not meant for those people, so you just keep writing what you want. Because right now, you're writing for yourself. So I hope keep that in mind while writing.
Thank you. I have a question. Do you think I have to improve anything in my
Sorry, can't hear you.
Do you think anything I have to improve in my
How to improve. So we're talking about the real chamber of secrets, right? So in this story actually, sorry the mic is not working, so I'll come closer. Everyone can hear me, right? So in this story right now, I'm sure you're in the starting stage and you're doing it great. But as we also can see, you are inspired from a story, right? You finished reading a story and inspired by that you're writing, which is a great thing. But what you can improve is you can add your own elements, like instead of just being into this fictional world, you can bring in your own words. Like for example, if you suddenly bring Vellore into this, no one is going to ask anything because you're the author, you're the writer, you have the right to anything, right to write anything you want. So that way, I hope you can bring in more realistic elements into that. And I also noticed another thing, just like the wordplay that you made with Texenberg and I had one, right? There was another word, the sisters that the protagonist meets are named as Ella and Cindy and Ella. Was that intentional or it just came randomly?
just human?
Randomly, because okay, that reminded me of how Cinderella, the word Cinderella can be split into Cindy and Ella, and also we see this girl goes to the uncle and aunt's place after the parents' death, and what happens there is she's made to do chores and all that, right? She's basically given household works and made to work a lot. So that reminded me of some references to fairy tale. So I thought that was
It's another interesting aspect because as a writer, I have my own imagination of writing story. When a reader, also a writer, when she goes to the text, she will have another meaning that you have not intended actually. That will be a discovery for both of you at the same time.
Different
So this is the beauty of the story. You create something and then you have created something that even you may not know. It has already been created. So that is the wonderful aspect of the story.
So I think you can focus more on realistic elements while writing, and you've only given 2 chapters if I'm not wrong, right? You can add more, you can keep writing first, and then you can follow the steps that I told you. After a few chapters, you can stop, read, and edit, make edits, proofread it.
I actually read it 10 times before.
Really, that's great.
We edited it again and again, like more than 20 times.
That's great work. You can keep that up with the future chapters as well. And I'm sure Ms. Fiona will help you with it. You have a
She's
really
the one who
great.
encouraged me to write.
She deserves a answer. Next person.
Good evening, ma'am. Myself, Manisha Malada. So, I'm just new to this writing. Like, I just generally read books. Generally, whatever just comes up, just go to the library, whichever I find randomly, I just take them, I just see them, and just read them all. And if I like the book, I just continue to read them. And Fiona encouraged me last Thursday, I started to write a book. So, I'm a kind of person who loves crime stories. So, one of my favorite authors is Holly Jackson.
Pardon?
Holly Jackson.
Holly
Yes. So I'm a favorite author. So I'm working on short stories. I wanted to actually make up this crime story into the short stories, but I'm missing them because short stories has a limit. That's why I'm pushing myself. and I'm just missing some clues to be mentioned over there. And I don't like, I want to make them short, I don't want to make them boring, so I'm pushing them to make it like with less pages. So she told that it's okay, you can just do wonders in the short writings. And I'm working on it, but somewhere I find a default like I put like a grammar sentence or perspective, and how should I just mention this characteristic of a person? So like, how could I just make some spice up? How could I just?
Writing is something that I like. Like from Agada history to the present generation, I'm reading a lot of crime stories. So with that, you're choosing crime as your area of occupation. When you start a story, you know who is going to be the murderer or the criminal one. So you are going to hide that process, I feel the game. So that is a constant challenge for you, because you cannot introduce a character suddenly in the last chapter and say he or she is the murderer. That is against the rules of the crime story. You have to introduce that person earlier, somewhere in the middle, or the reader should be able to give an option to the reader to imagine. They should be thinking, okay, this person made out and this person made out, and this is called red herrings. So you have to be very careful when you write a crime story, because you have to plot each and every chapter, and then you have to be very cautious. You have to hide that person's identity, and then at the same time you should also be there everywhere. So that's a very, very risky and very challenging. It makes it very challenging thing. So there are no fixed rules for a crime story. As long as it is interesting, and as long as you make the readers guessing and till the last page, and then you give the final revelation, that is the climax. So this person is something I never thought of this person. I was thinking about the other one. I was thinking about doubting this person. So that is the actual self-process. So you deserve it till the last page, and then you give a flash. So go ahead with that.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Could you please tell me what would be your
What would be?
your opinion on that? Which one was it? The shadows of light, shadows of
Flame. Keep it here.
Give us a few minutes. Actually, I'd like to add on more to the previous question about the short story and how you can condense it, right? You wanted to know. Since I have written lots of short stories, that is also something that I came across. One of the hardships that I faced was all the things that I wanted to say, I had to condense it into a short word limit. Especially when you have word and page limit, you're restricted to just, you have to make sacrifices, you are forced to do things like that. So I think actually right now I would say whatever you are feeling, instead of having to make it very brief and condense it forcefully, I think you can just write whatever you want first and reach the ending. So once you feel like the work is complete, and then you can figure out, because then you might actually change your mind, you may want to develop it into something else and not just short stories. Maybe it's a possibility. So I think while doing the writing process, it's better you focus on writing and just enhancing and completing the work instead of having to force yourself to condense everything to fit the word limit. I think it's better if you don't focus on the limit at all when you're writing.
Yeah, but I have some doubts about this. First of all, is it a short novel that we have imagined, or is it going to be a large big one? Because it has 3 chapters, and then I'm not too sure about whether maybe following that up with more chapters, adding more chapters to it, even see a sample of exactly.
Have we added more chapters to it?
very interesting story. I like this story very much. And some elements that I already shared already about the settings and about the names of the characters which are mostly foreign, and those aspects that I shared. That was also for your advice also to your story, because the settings were all foreign to me. But the storyline was good. So it makes for interesting to me. So please proceed with this, and then we concentrate on the grammar and other things. We have to go through the again and delete a few things. Otherwise, it will just become a good novel. How many chapters roughly have you done?
24.
Please go ahead. I would like to read the remaining pages.
The next person.
I'm not that kind of guy who reads books, but I get, the idea of a story through movies and other platforms. So I'm not mostly a series or kind of episodes guy. I'm more of a movie person. So I get, the concept of a movie through that movie. So, for example, let's take Mufasa the Lion King, that was recently released. So, that kind of script, the concept of the movie, everything, people of all ages can enjoy it. So, I'm more of that guy. So, I don't like, it's not that I don't like directors or such, but then the story in that movie really hit me a lot, from personal experiences and all that. So like that, each and every movie relates to me more than books. So that's how I feel.
So I love writing mystery stories. I don't know why, but I hate reading them. I want to write non-fictional stories. How would you tell me how to write? I want to be encouraged to write. I write a script and write a few pages about it, but I leave it because I can't think more than that. I can't leave like superpowers. I can't do that.
You're saying you leave a script after starting a bit and then you want to do different from you're saying. There's nothing wrong with that because I started writing when I was around your age too, and there are lots of unfinished scripts. I have lots of works that I started and are still pending, and I don't even know when they'll get finished. Because when you start writing, that's because you have an inspiration, a spark, a sort of an idea that just suddenly hits you, right? And when that spark runs out, there's no need to force yourself to continue it. I believe you can just leave it but continue writing because a new idea may come to you. Whatever ideas you have, it's very important to record everything down because sometimes over the years, it will be weeks, months or years later, you might want to continue it again. You might have more ideas to develop the script that you left unfinished years ago. So it's a great idea. You can just write them down, record them, make sure you record them without fail, and you can anytime come back to them and develop that later.
Hello, I'm Linda. I would like to share my favorite book and the author. I have recently read a comic book named Pabal Petti Eduthe Kavida by S. Ramakrishnan. I love that book because he had given a life to a non-living thing, which is basically different for me. So I love that. Thank you.
So ma'am, you told me that in my book, the time skips were very blank, and once she's in her birthday and then goes to her college and school. So that happened because I rushed 3 chapters last night. I know it's very bad and our brain doesn't work in heavy. I rushed it because I was in lack of time. That happened, and then my favorite author, writer, when you ask a reader to name a favorite writer, if she say you're asking a mother to name her favorite
have Ruskin Bond, recently I read Anne of Green Gables by Lucy Montgomery, and Divya Jalan, Jane Austen, and Page.
So I agree with you about having to pick a writer. And also, I have to really commend you that despite having to rush, it still made sense. The plot was good. The only reason I pointed that out was you can enhance it that way. I didn't know you had to rush. I mean, you were still capable of doing such a great job after rushing.
Thank you.
Okay, to sum up, I think everybody should continue the work that we have already done. Complete the novel, please finish the play, complete the short story, as well as the non-fictional work on cryptocurrency. Please complete them, they are all good. I would say it is bad, quite honest with you. So they are all nice, remarkable, so please continue and then complete the script. And you can think about the things that we discussed today. For example, we can go through the text again and then see if we can improvise it in any way, if you can. Otherwise, you can do the work as it is. Then you can think important thing is editing. So you do as much editing as possible from your end, and anyway before it gets published, we all wants to get published. There will be another person in the editorial house, the publication house, they will also do extensive editing. Before that, as an author, when you submit the script, it has to be without any obvious errors. So you can go through the text again and then eliminate all grammatical, structural, and other kinds of mistakes as much as possible. Reduce them. And these are the things. So keep reading. Another third point. So read extensively. If you are into non-fiction, then read as many non-fiction writers as possible. Also fiction writers. If you are into fiction, don't restrict yourself to fiction. Also explore non-fiction. Pick up some strange themes like history, like anthropology, like sociology. Pick up any theme and then start reading. Definitely, non-fiction is also a kind of storytelling, different format, but still you get a lot of information out of it. If you are into non-fiction, please read fiction, because fiction will make you think and then it will broaden your thinking, and every field of knowledge is a piece of information. So unless you put them all together, you won't be able to form a bigger picture. So don't restrict yourself to one or two authors or one or two subjects. So widen as much as possible. Math, not math, sorry. Science, including maths, I was joking. So math, science, and then Tamil, English. So as many languages as possible. So read multiple languages, multiple books. So these are things that you have to do, and then automatically, if you start doing this, then it will show up your script. So all the best for all of you. What I will do, I will write to Fiona ma'am, and then I will share our feedback about each of the books so that it will write novel with you. And then we can do more of this session. After taking some interval, we can revisit you again to assess how, what actually went into the writing, and then whether we need more sittings or whether we need identify any areas of improvement. We can share that, and then we can do that, not as one-time exercise, but we can do it again once you are free from all the examination, commitments and other things, whenever it is feasible. So I also share my email ID, and those who have access can write to us, and then we can share, feedback or assistance anytime. Yeah.
I have a little something for you all. It's bookmarks from theme is my books. So I think it also has a contact detail. So maybe you can all take some later. I can leave it with your map, so you can collect them later. Also, is there anything else? Any more questions?
It is an enjoyable session. I should thank Fiona ma'am and then everyone in the school and also the students, because it's a great opportunity for us to interact with you, to get to know about your reading interest, writing interest. It also gives me inspiration that there are readers, or people always say readers are diminishing, books are disappearing, only devices are going to rule the world. So it gives some hope that reading is not dead and the writing is not dead. So I'm very happy about that. Yes, you want to say something? What to publish is a very broad area. To start with, once you complete the script, then you have to approach the right publisher. For example, if it's non-fiction work, you have to identify non-fiction, publishing houses. If it's a fiction, you should be able to, do some research and then find out publication groups, and then mail your, completed text to them. Some people may ask for samples. So self-published samples are covering letter. Be prepared for rejections, and one day it will get published. So that's how it works. So there's no easy process of getting it published. Another aspect is to open a blog or keep writing social media platform, and then you can share bits and pieces of your work, write about short comments on everything, and then people will get interested. They will follow you, they will start reading you. It's another way of becoming a popular known writer.
Thank you so much for answering all of the questions patiently, sir. Especially the last question. I was hoping somebody would ask that, or else I was going to ask that myself. There is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside of you, said Maya Angel. Thank you, Madam Sir and Luna, for beautifully helping our kids give their untold stories a release through writing. There's just one advice I keep giving the kids constantly, which is like the quote from Finding Dory, which goes like, keep swimming, keep swimming, keep swimming. I keep telling them to keep writing. But there's so much more we learned from you today, so much more topics you opened for discussion, and so many pointers you gave us to think about and write about. We thank you so much for that. We have a very wonderful bunch of kids who write magically. We have playwrights, we have travel writers, we have novelists and short story writers, we have poets and a finance self-help writer. We have one writer who wears an overcoat that resembles Nikolai Gogol's overcoat story. He holds the entire universe inside that overcoat. We have writers who love Tamil books as much as English books. We have writers who are brilliant but are as quiet as a dormouse. But we also have writers who cannot stop talking once they get started talking about their books. But there's just one thing in common among all of these people, which is the sparkle in their eyes when they talk about their books. Thank you for helping us keep that sparkle alive. Thank you for helping our kids flesh out their own raw ideas. I'm sure our kids still have so much to ask and know as they grow more as writers. We would appreciate your continued guidance and support. Thank you for taking time to come to our campus and helping us grow as writers, sir. On behalf of the school and our Writers Club, I'd like to thank you for your time and your dedication. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.